So, will Airbus release a new A380 variant? No, I'm not necessarily talking about an A380 Neo, an A380 Plus, but something a little bit different. Why does this conversation come up? Well, we know this is an aircraft type experiencing a bit of a resurgence. So, could a combi type variant be the answer to keeping the aircraft active with airlines longer? And there's a little bit of backing around this discussion that ultimately fizzles out. That is the long story short, but why not get into a little bit more of a fun analysis? Firstly, to understand the long-term outlook, which is absolutely essential of the A380, I must also examine the overall status with Airbus, the European plane maker, who obviously go on to build the plane. Unfortunately, at the beginning of 2019, Emirates, the leading customer of the world's largest passenger plane, announced the cancellation of many units for this type. This cancellation, combined also with Airbus's inability to secure fresh orders, meant quite a strong decision was needed regarding the program's fate. Subsequently, that decision would come, and it wouldn't be the one that many would have wanted. That being, Airbus would cease production of the A380 in the early 2020s and would progress towards what it calls a new era with a greater focus on efficient and profitable planes. The final A380 was then, a few years later, delivered to Emirates, and since then, the space at Airbus used for making this jet has been transformed into assets for programs such as the A320 Neo family to facilitate increased production. For this is the most popular aircraft family and is only rapidly seeing the backlog increase. As a result, this means the A380's presence at Airbus has diminished quite significantly, and the aircraft nowadays could be considered a mere memory, despite still flying around the world and enjoying a bit of a resurgence. Understanding whether there's an appetite for a combi-like variant of the A380 means analysing how customers currently feel also about the A380-800 and its prospects. The A380 has, as I touched on right at the beginning of this video, experienced quite a resurgence, and for any quad-engined lovers watching this video, I'm sure that will bring a big smile to your face. And I know that there are some out there that don't like the A380, they feel it killed off the 747. Personally, I'd be of the stance now to squash that and just enjoy four-engined aircraft while we still have them, because there will be a time where we won't have them, period, and you'll be upset that maybe at a certain point you disliked one or the other, but I can't tell you how to. In terms of that resurgence, airlines have deployed these planes to more in-demand routes, and the resurgence comes about as they race to meet capacity. But the thing is, it follows one major problem in many airlines' fleets, and that relates to their reaction to supply chain difficulties. While most airlines are bringing back the A380, it's not really being done as a long-term decision, and arguably to a certain extent, it shouldn't really be happening. It's more a short-term solution to a broader problem. The broader capacity problem stems from airlines' inability to acquire aircraft on time from Airbus and Boeing. These next-gen aircraft were the ones destined to replace the A380 and reduce overall costs. However, airlines have been hit hard with substantial delays for many reasons, and this includes jets such as the 777X, which still remains uncertified. So as a result, your airlines are looking to retain older, less efficient, but larger aircraft that little bit longer, and in many cases, this will include the A380. So what does this mean for the long-term prospects of an aircraft and maybe a combi? Unfortunately, given the lack of a customer appetite, further adjustments to the A380 do seem unlikely, and the argument may have been that if it was going to take off at any point, the global pandemic did present that opportunity when we saw many airlines reconfiguring their aircraft to primarily drive cargo and maybe to a certain extent some passengers. Long-standing operators such as Emirates intend to fly the aircraft until they basically can't anymore, likely into the early 2040s, assuming nothing extreme happens between now and then, but you can never really know. Meanwhile, airlines such as Qatar Airways want to eliminate what they call, and I quote, their biggest mistake as soon as possible, but they're relying on aircraft deliveries to facilitate this retirement. So what about a combi type? Could this be a means to extend the life of the aircraft and give it a, say, greater purpose across the industry? Well, combi-type aircraft are actually not all that uncommon across our industry and date back many decades, when they were actually deemed to be very useful for a means of carrying not just cargo but also passengers, hence the name combi. But the thing is, as aircraft evolved from small jets to planes such as the 747, it became apparent that airlines could now leverage this newfound capacity to their advantage in terms of, yes, passenger and cargo traffic, maybe through a dedicated freighter instead of a combi. With that being said, you did still have airlines such as KLM, a major adopter of the 747, which has now sadly retired the type, relying on a combi, which focused on offering a great amount of payload for freight, but the thing is, it would also come with capacity in the hundreds for passengers. It was the best of both worlds. But would an A380 combi work? Well, given the wide adoption of combi aircraft occurred some time ago, do you think it would work in the mid-2020s? The thing is, no, unfortunately not really. The A380 has sort of been from the beginning a one-type plane, used primarily for passenger flights and typically operating with just the one airline. Yes, I'm aware there are examples that exist of the second-hand market, such as High Fly, whose stint with the aircraft was pretty much a disaster, and they pretty promptly got rid of it. And yes, there is that prospective but completely unproven global airlines trying to operate second-hand units. But typically, once the A380 has fulfilled its life at an operator such as Thai Airways, there's no use for it, bar the scrapyard. What I mean by no use is it's hardly going to get picked up and continue flying. And don't even get me started on the logistical nightmare of trying to, say, get the A380s out of Thailand like we've seen take place. Furthermore, combi aircraft don't have the greatest future either. While their role was substantial some time ago, it's diminished quite considerably recently. The fall of this merry means of aircraft configuration does come from the lack of efficiency and difficulty of finding a beneficial balance between passengers and cargo. Unfortunately, as I touched on at the beginning, from Airbus's standpoint, the A380 is dead and its future is no longer. So therefore, investing money into a combi wouldn't be worth it from their standpoint. While there are exterior parties that can look at offering conversions, would they really be interested in doing this with no company, say, coming outright and calling for it? Probably not. Is there some hope though, even a glimmer? Well, actually to a certain extent, yes. And that comes from Freightwaves, who reported in 2021 that Airbus was speaking with operators regarding a conversion. The change would basically see the addition of the main deck to a cargo hold, and the top deck would focus on passenger transportation, increasing the payload quite significantly in regards to freight able to be carried. The report indicated that the new configuration could help the A380 survive and be plausible. However, nothing firm has come to light since, casting doubts on progress ever being made, and again, very much seeming to be like a pipe dream. Thank you very much for tuning into this video. I'd love to hear your opinions. Is the future going to be an A380 combi, or is this a one and done aircraft, and there isn't much hope, at least for the foreseeable future, in seeing the quad-engine plane return in some capacity? Thanks for watching, take care, and I'll see you in a couple of days. And we'll fly.